It's 2025, and beneath the headlines, a silent crackdown is sweeping across Europe. Policies cloaked in bureaucratic language and late-night votes are reshaping the continent's identity. Families are disappearing, and the secrecy surrounding these actions is alarming. Tonight, we uncover the 10 European countries quietly removing Muslims and what it means for the future. Stick with me, because this is a story you need to hear. First up, France. A country that has long prided itself on its revolutionary ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. But beneath the surface, a different story is unfolding. One where the very concept of secularism, or laïcité, is being wielded as a tool of exclusion rather than inclusion. In recent years, secularism has become a quiet weapon, used to systematically target and marginalize Muslim communities across the nation. Under the pretense of protecting French values, authorities are shutting down mosques and Islamic centers, often based on vague or unproven allegations of separatism. These closures are not isolated incidents. They are part of a broader pattern, where places of worship and community gathering are shuttered, leaving neighborhoods without vital support systems. The accusations are frequently flimsy, but the consequences are very real. Displacement, fear, and a growing sense of alienation. New laws have been passed, granting the government sweeping powers to dissolve organizations with little transparency or oversight. Critics argue that these measures bypass due process, making it nearly impossible for affected groups to defend themselves or appeal decisions. The impact is deeply personal. Imams and community leaders are seeing their residency permits revoked or denied, forcing them to uproot their lives and leave the country. Families are torn apart, and entire communities are left without guidance or representation. This isn't a sudden purge, but a slow grinding process, a relentless pressure that makes daily life so challenging, so uncertain, that many simply give up and move away. The message is clear: you are not welcome here. As these policies unfold, more and more people are beginning to question what France's cherished values really mean. Is secularism about freedom, or is it being used to justify exclusion? The debate over French identity is more heated than ever. At the heart of it all lies a fundamental question. What are French values if they don't include the freedom to be yourself, to practice your faith, and to belong? For many, the promise of equality feels increasingly hollow. This is a strategy of attrition, slowly wearing down communities until they disappear. And for now, it's working. Streets once full of life are growing quieter, and the fabric of these neighborhoods is unraveling. But in the banlieue, the story is far from over. Here, resilience and resistance are taking root as a new chapter begins to unfold. Next, we turn our attention to Germany, a country long celebrated as a beacon of tolerance and progressive values in Europe. For decades, Germany has prided itself on its open-door policies and its willingness to welcome those seeking refuge from conflict and persecution. The world has often looked to Germany as a model for humanitarianism and integration. But beneath this tolerant facade, a different reality is emerging. The nation now faces mounting accusations of so-called silent deportations, removals that happen quietly, often without public scrutiny or media attention. These actions have sparked protests and ignited fierce debates across the country. The recent surge in support for far-right parties has put immense pressure on the government. In response, officials have begun to tighten the screws, but they do so quietly, behind closed doors, hoping to avoid backlash from the international community and their own citizens. Pre-dawn raids and increased surveillance have become more common, creating an atmosphere of fear and mistrust among immigrant communities. Families are often awakened in the early hours, unsure if they will be next. Even minor infractions or unsubstantiated claims can now flag someone as a potential security risk. Everyday activities, like a simple misunderstanding or a neighbor's complaint, can suddenly put lives in jeopardy. New laws have granted intelligence agencies sweeping powers to monitor online activity, tap phones, and collect personal data. The digital footprint of every resident is now under scrutiny, blurring the line between security and privacy. Germany's two-faced policy is stark. While official statements emphasize integration and compassion, the bureaucratic machinery is increasingly designed to identify, isolate, and remove those deemed undesirable. It's a classic case of saying one thing and doing another, publicly championing diversity, while quietly enforcing exclusionary measures. For those caught in the middle, the experience is nothing short of a nightmare. Families live in constant fear, never knowing when the next knock on the door might come, or if they'll be forced to leave behind the lives they've built. In Italy, paperwork is weaponized to make it difficult for Muslims to stay. The Security and Immigration Decree creates a mountain of obstacles for residency. Higher income thresholds and vague social integration criteria make permits hard to obtain. Informal prayer spaces are shut down using zoning laws and safety regulations. This bureaucratic squeeze forces people to self-deport, leaving Italy to claim they never forced anyone out. It's a quiet, bureaucratic, "You are no longer welcome here." The message is clear: your life here is over. It's a slow, suffocating squeeze. Across Austria, mosques are being shuttered, their doors chained, and communities left in shock. These closures are not isolated incidents, but part of a growing pattern that has become increasingly visible in recent years. Under the broad and often vague justification of fighting terrorism, Austrian authorities have ramped up police raids, targeting not just suspected criminals, but also academics, community leaders, and ordinary families. Operation Luxor, for example, was a sweeping crackdown that sent waves of fear through the Muslim community as homes were raided and people detained in the early hours of the morning. Yet, despite the dramatic headlines and heavy-handed tactics, the case ultimately collapsed in court. No substantial evidence was found, and the legal proceedings fizzled out, leaving behind only anxiety and mistrust. The real impact was not in the courtroom, but in the message sent to the Muslim community that they are under constant suspicion and that their voices can be silenced through intimidation rather than justice. The Documentation Center for Political Islam, a government-backed initiative, has gone so far as to publish a public map of Muslim institutions, effectively creating a target list and exposing these organizations to further scrutiny and potential harassment. These mosque closures are often justified under foreign funding laws, but similar practices by other religious groups are routinely ignored. This selective enforcement highlights a double standard that singles out Muslims for special suspicion. Through press conferences and media campaigns, Austrian politicians frame their Muslim citizens not as neighbors or fellow Austrians, but as a challenge to be controlled, a problem to be managed rather than a community to be embraced. This show of force is not just about law enforcement, it's about sending a message. The goal is to intimidate, to silence dissent, and to discourage Muslims from participating fully in public life. But the community is pushing back, organizing protests and demanding their rights as equal citizens. Despite these challenges, Muslim families continue to live, work, and contribute to Austrian society, striving to be recognized as Austrians in every sense of the word. Yet, the narrative persists. Muslims are portrayed as outsiders, as a problem to be solved rather than as citizens to be respected and included. In the end, Austria's approach is less about justice and more about power, a hammer searching for a nail, regardless of the damage left behind. Denmark's ghetto laws push out Muslim families from designated areas. Neighborhoods are labeled based on income, education, and ethnicity. Children face mandatory daycare to learn Danish values, and crimes carry double penalties. By 2030, common family housing must be reduced, forcing families to move. The government claims it's about integration, but critics see it as breaking up communities. It's a quiet eviction notice served to an entire neighborhood. It's a uniquely Scandinavian kind of cold, calculated cruelty. The intent is to make life unstable, pushing people to leave. The Netherlands, known for openness, is quietly deporting Muslims under new security measures. Intelligence services have massive surveillance powers, creating risk profiles. Dual nationals face citizenship revocation without criminal conviction. This creates a two-tier system of citizenship, sending a chilling message to immigrants. The Netherlands maintains an outward image of tolerance while selectively removing people. It's a system of pre-crime, where you're punished for things you might do. The political landscape has shifted, with anti-Islam ideas seeping into the mainstream. You are here on probation. Sweden, once a humanitarian champion, is tightening asylum rules and increasing deportations. Temporary laws restrict asylum rights, making family reunification nearly impossible. Asylum interviews are interrogations, and the burden of proof is impossibly high. Deportations to unsafe countries like Iraq and Afghanistan are increasing. People live in limbo, unable to work or study, waiting for rejection. Internal checks create psychological pressure, making life unbearable. Sweden is quietly giving up the fight. The humanitarian image is cracking. Hungary, led by Viktor Orban, is openly anti-immigrant, using covert actions to remove Muslims. The Stop Soros law criminalizes helping asylum seekers, isolating migrants. National security is used to target legal residents and citizens. Islam is not officially recognized, making it difficult for Muslim organizations to operate. Transit zones were illegal detention camps, and asylum applications must be made abroad. Hungary's methods are a complex web of legal traps and administrative punishments. Orban's rhetoric is loud, but the methods are quiet. Hungary aims for a Muslim-free country. Poland, with strict border controls, is making it nearly impossible for Muslims to enter. The border with Belarus is a humanitarian crisis zone, with illegal pushbacks. People are trapped in forests, freezing without food or shelter. Poland's policy creates a humanitarian disaster, ensuring migrants never set foot on Polish soil. Hate speech is rampant, and residency is a nightmare for Muslims. Poland is building a fortress, letting people die outside the walls. The government's rhetoric conflates being Muslim with being a threat. It's a quiet, deadly policy of absolute rejection. Greece, the EU's gatekeeper, is quietly relocating and deporting Muslim refugees. Pushbacks at sea are illegal, violent, and dangerous, putting lives at risk. Closed controlled access centers replace open camps, restricting movement. Asylum claims are rushed, and deportations are prioritized. Greece is pressured by the EU to control migration, abandoning legal obligations. The strategy is out of sight, out of mind. Greece is doing the EU's dirty work. The cradle of democracy is making brutal choices. 10 countries, 10 methods, one chilling trend, silent crackdowns changing Europe's face. Bureaucratic mazes, legal traps, and physical walls close off a continent once championing human rights. This isn't just policy, it's a fundamental change in identity. We must stay informed, ask hard questions, and not let these stories go unheard. The future of Europe is being written now, and your voice matters.